Do not send a follow-up email that looks like this to your interviewer. Congratulations, you just finished your interview, and now the most important thing that you have to do is send a follow-up email to your interviewer so you can stay top of mind and increase your chances of getting that job offer. So in this video, I'm going to give you 4 email templates that you can use for any situation to follow up with your interviewer once your interview is complete. And stay until the very end of the video because I'm going to give you an email template to use if your interview did not go well or you screwed up on one of the interview questions, and how you can actually save yourself and potentially get that job offer. Okay, but before you can even write any of these follow-up emails, there is something really important that you need to do as soon as your interview is over, and that is you need to start to take some notes. You need to write down, number 1, what are the interview questions that they asked you, and what were your answers to the best that you can remember that you gave in that interview. That way you can work to improve your answers over time, because if you don't move forward in your interview, you know that you need to actually improve all of the examples that you had shared. And this also allows you to build up a good interview question bank. So the more interviews that you do, the more practice you can get. And before you know it, all these interviews are all going to start to sound the same, and you're going to have the perfect interview answers. You're also going to want to know which answers you gave, because you may need to reference back to them in some of these email templates. The next thing you need to write down when your interview is over is the questions that you had asked to that interviewer and some of the answers that they had shared, because you may need to use that information as well. And then the third thing you need to write down is anything unique or interesting that came up during your interview as it relates to the job itself, or something unique or that you have in common with the interviewer, because either of these two things are going to help you in future interviews, and you're going to use some of this information in your follow-up emails. For example, if they gave you more context about the job, like the projects you'd be working on, or the skills that they need, or the tools and the systems that their company uses, you're going to want to take that information so you can custom tailor your examples and answers in future interviews. And if they shared something unique about their background, like where they grew up, or if they have a family, or some of their hobbies that you two have in common, you can actually utilize that information to write a better follow-up email and stand out from other candidates. Okay, so now before I show you some of these interview templates that you can literally copy and paste so you can stand out from other candidates, there are some general things that I want to point out that are going to be very helpful that you need to know before you click send on your email. And the first thing is that you're going to notice all of these emails are very short and to the point. Because remember, these recruiters and interviewers, they have regular jobs, and you can probably speak with this too. If someone sends you a really long email, do you get excited to read it? No. So you'll notice that all of these email templates are really short and to the point and very efficient with our usage of words, and there's very little adjectives. Also, it's very important that you proofread your email, especially if you're going to send it to the hiring manager or your interviewer. If you have any grammar mistakes, any typos, it's going to reflect poorly on you as a candidate. As a recruiter, I can tell you there was actually a candidate who sent a really poorly worded and with a lot of grammatical errors. They sent an email follow-up to my interviewer and hiring manager. So this follow-up email alone actually got this candidate rejected. So take the time to proofread your emails before you click send. You don't want your follow-up email to be the reason that you get blacklisted from this company and you can never interview again. Now, some interviewers do not give out their work email addresses. So you can either ask the recruiter to give you their emails or just send it to the recruiter and have them forward it on for you. Now, the very first email template to go through is the one that you're going to send to your interviewer the same day that your interview is complete, but only use this email template if you think that the interview went well. Now first, you're going to notice that your subject of the email is going to call out the specific job that you interviewed for. That's because if this interviewer or hiring manager has multiple positions open or has done multiple interviews that day for different teams, they're going to know exactly which team it is that you were interviewing for. And then include your full name here so that way you stay top of mind for both the hiring manager and the recruiter. Now, you'll notice that your greeting here needs to be formal because you don't know if the hey or hi is going to be taken well based on their cultural context. So instead, err on the side of caution and use a very formal greeting like dear, and use their first name. Then you're going to say something like, thank you for taking the time to assess my fit for the role. You are actually thanking them here because they are taking away time from their daily responsibilities in order to do these interviews. And for those of you who have to do interviews at your own company, you know that it's a bit of a pain in the butt to do your full job and do additional interviews, take the notes, and go through all these additional meetings. So you first want to acknowledge and thank them for taking the time out of their day. And then you want to express that you are grateful to have the opportunity, even if you're not, because You want to show them that you are excited about this company. Then you're going to want to pull out something iconic or memorable from your interview. So you can say something like, one of my favorite moments from the interview was when we discussed, and then you're going to use some of the notes that you took once your interview had finished, where you're going to either call out a really impressive example that you had shared, or talk about something that you two had in common, or maybe a joke that you said, or maybe share some type of recommendation. And then you're going to want to end this second paragraph by saying, I believe my skills in, and then point out which specific technical skills here. Do not use any soft skills like collaboration, communication, teamwork, cross-functional collaboration. Don't use any of those. Talk to the hard technical skills that you need for this role, like SQL or knowing SAP and Oracle or Python. And then say it would be a great asset for your team. Stop. You don't need to elaborate. Again, you want this email to be short and sweet and to the point so they actually are excited to read it. Then say, if you have any further questions about my background or need clarification on anything I said, I'm always available. This is just in case during their group meeting, when they get together and go through all the interview feedback, if something does come up, you want to say that you are available for that. And that's how you're going to end your email. Short and sweet and to the point. That way, when the interviewer gets this, they're not going to be like, oh, a super long email, I don't even want to read this. Now, this next email template is the one that you can use if you haven't heard back from the company or the recruiter within 7 days. You do not want to come across as a stalker or one of those really annoying candidates. As a recruiter, I can tell you, if you email and follow up with me every single day, it's going to hurt your chances of actually getting this job. We want to know that you're excited about the position, but you don't want to come across as annoying and get blacklisted. So wait 7 days and then send a follow-up email. Again, use your full name in the subject line so you stay top of mind with the recruiter, and because if you're going to follow up on this email chain, they'll immediately know who they need to share an update with. And then again, make sure you call out which specific job you are interviewing for in case the recruiter has multiple positions that they're working on. And then identify the date of the interview. This is like a soft reminder saying that, hey, it's been 7 days that you haven't given me an update, without directly calling it out. So in your email body, you can say something like, just wanted to check in. I had a great discussion with, and insert the interviewer's name. This is going to remind them who they need to nudge or follow up with on the interview feedback to figure out if you're moving forward or not. And then politely say, it's been 7 days, so I wanted to know when you'd likely have an update. I understand hiring decisions take time and you want to make the right choice. This is you showing empathy. So when can we reconnect? Now, it's very important here, and I wrote this down, you're going to want to end your interview with a question. That way the recruiter is forced to respond back to you and share some type of update. If you simply wrote this as, let me know when we can reconnect, they're just not going to respond to you because I'm going to need more time anyways, and they may not actually respond to you. So make sure you end it with a question. And you only want to send this once every 7 days. And then if you still don't hear back from them, unfortunately, it means that they ghosted you. And if you want to know why you got ghosted, I made a whole video on this channel about why recruiters ghost you. So you can check that out next. Okay, so now the third email template that we're going to go through is for a situation which I hope doesn't happen to you, but if it does, I've actually used this template with success in order to get a future job at the company that I've gotten rejected from. So unfortunately, if you receive some bad news that your interview did not go well and you are not moving forward, you're going to want to send this email to the recruiter, not the hiring manager. Send this to the recruiter the same day that you got the rejection notice. And again, I have seen people get future job opportunities at that company because maybe you just weren't the right fit for this specific role or that specific team, but there could be another opportunity for you in the future at that same company. I myself had to interview for my company, one of the FANG companies, 2 times. And I did okay my first round, so I didn't get blacklisted, but not good enough to get the final offer. I was one of the finalists, but I wasn't chosen. So I sent a follow-up email very similar to this, and then a few months later, when another position opened on a different team, I got the opportunity to re-interview, and then I landed my job at FANG. So your subject line is going to say, I am grateful for the opportunity. Please keep and use your full name here, so again, you stay top of mind with the recruiter, in mind. Your email body is going to say something like, thank you and the interviewers for this opportunity. I'm disappointed that I wasn't selected, but I genuinely respect the team's decision, showing that you are not upset and you are walking away with some class. If anything changes with this position, for example, the requirements change, or the other finalist doesn't accept. Because as a recruiter, I can tell you sometimes you were a good candidate on paper or on your resume, and maybe the interviews even had gone pretty well. But we realized that, one of the skills that we need is really important and you just don't have it. Like maybe we thought we could get away without hiring someone who knows Tableau, but the more candidates we interviewed, we realized that Tableau actually is really important because there's no one on the team who has time to train you. Or maybe we realized that this project is under a really tough time constraint and we're not going to have as much time to onboard and train people. So the hiring manager has decided at the very last minute to only take people who specifically have already been trained in Tableau. And in the future, requirements actually may change about the role, or they may realize that something they thought was important is not that important anymore and you become a viable candidate. Now, there are other times as a recruiter where I already had someone else in mind as a finalist for the position. And so maybe I kept you waiting for too long, and so I gave you the news that we're not moving forward and we're going with a different candidate. There are times where that candidate does not take the offer. Or I even had a candidate accept the offer and then they failed the background check. So I actually needed to go back and find another finalist. So you're gonna wanna say and call out those two types of scenarios in case that does happen. And then the third scenario is if anything changes with this position or you feel like it'd be a fit for another position, because again, as a recruiter, if I liked you and the interviews went well, I may not have thought about sharing your resume with other teams or other recruiters that are at my company. And there could be another team position that's a perfect match. And you could say, my background is also a fit for blank type of roles. So if you know that, for example, I'm a recruiter, right? So I could say, maybe I interviewed for a technical recruiting position. I could tell them I'm also a fit for non-technical recruiting roles because I've recruited for HR and sales positions. Or I could say I'm also a fit for program manager roles because I've had program management responsibilities in addition to my recruiting job. So you want to call out proactively for the recruiter here what other jobs you would be a perfect match for, and then it may influence them to share your resume with other teams and other recruiters. And you could even you could say, I would be happy to come back for additional interviewers. This is you saying, hey, I understand that I didn't do super well on this one, but if it's close enough, I'd love another opportunity to come back and re-interview so you can reassess new skills. And then keep it short and sweet, just say, thank you very much. And by the way, if you're finding this content to be helpful so far, make sure you click subscribe down below because I post free weekly content just like this to help you advance your career and find a job that you will love. All right, so the fourth email template that I'm gonna give you that's super helpful is if you feel like your interview did not go well or you had to skip one of your interview questions. You're gonna use the same subject line where you call out the job title that you're interviewing for and your full name so you stay top of mind. And then of course, use your formal greeting of Dear Interviewer's First Name. And then you can say, firstly, thank you for taking the time to assess my fit for the role. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity. Again, showing empathy and acknowledging the fact that taking time to do interviews in addition to your regular day job is a bit of a pain. Now, this is where the body is going to be a little bit different. So you're going to say, reflecting on our discussion, particularly regarding, and then you mentioned the question that you had to skip or the question you got wrong, or maybe they said, hey, I noticed you don't have X, Y, and Z skill, and you didn't have a good answer for that in the moment. You call that out. So you can say, reflecting on our discussion, particularly regarding when you asked me blank, I wanted to add that. So you're not saying, hey, ignore my answer and I want to restart. You're saying, I want to take that answer because, again, you're not ashamed of your answer. You don't think your answer was bad. You don't want to influence them to think that your initial answer was bad. So you're going to say, I wanted to add on to that, and then state an additional point or maybe something you forgot or there's a better answer you came up with as soon as the interview was over. You're going to say that. I wanted to add that. I also do X, Y, and Z. Or if you're concerned about this skill, I've also done this project where I had to learn something very, very quickly. And then give a concrete example that supports your claim about what you're adding in the previous sentence. So you could say, for instance, in my previous role, I successfully implemented Oracle or SAP finance modules and led global trainings for over 2,500 accountants. And now this is a key part of the email here. You're going to say, one of my references, and then give your reference name, can speak to my blank skills, whatever it is that you're referring to in this section right here, and verify this example. This part is super important here because it gives you credibility by saying, yeah, I know I didn't say this in the interview and I probably should have, but I am sharing it now and it's a really good example. But if you think I'm lying, please check one of my references and they'll be able to validate this. This sentence alone is so powerful and can end up landing you a job if you didn't do so well on the interview. And then of course, wrap it up by saying, if you have any further questions about my background or need clarification on anything else I said in the interview, I'm always available. All right, so there you have 4 perfect email templates that you can use to follow up with your interviewer after the interview is over, if you think the interview went well, if you haven't gotten an update in 7 days, if you want to be reconsidered for another opportunity at this company if you get rejected, and how to potentially save your candidacy if you know that your interview did not go according to plan. Thank you all for watching, and don't be afraid to shake things up.